to here. You're here because you share our commitment to learning best practices on how you can lead and invest in your communities, because you care about improving the lives of all residents in these communities, and because you understand it will take a collaborative approach, leveraging volunteerism along with financial support to ensure impactful social change ecosystems. And today we'll have an opportunity to learn from our speakers as well as from each other. So briefly want to start with some introductions. Our featured speakers will share their experiences with pivoting during the COVID-19 transition, as well as lessons learned that we can take into 2021. And before we jump into content, I want to start with some introductions and some housekeeping components. And then I'm going to hand it over to Megan for a quick introduction with some news to share. All right, so some housekeeping components just to get folks prepared for the program is at the bottom of the screen, it says chat. Feel free to type in your questions there, and we will ensure to interweave them as best we can throughout the program. Additionally, at the end of the session, we will have a poll, a couple minutes to complete an evaluation poll, and San Diego Grantmakers really appreciates your time to complete those poll questions because that data will be used to improve future programming. Additionally, this session is being recorded, and we're going to jump into some introductions, but first I'd like to hand it over to Megan, who will share some news from San Diego Grantmakers.
Are we doing like round robin introductions, Carlos? I can't hear you, but I'm going to assume you're saying yes, so I'll start.
Yes, we are. And also what I would ask is if with introductions, if folks can share a silver lining moment that has occurred for them as they have been pivoting and shifting in response to COVID-19.
Oh, okay. I'll start and then we can come back around to me. Hi, everybody. Megan Thomas, Vice President of Collaboration and Special Initiatives at San Diego Grantmakers, where I see oversee our collaborative groups, cohorts like this, the programming that Carlos brilliantly puts forward, and our equity driven work or support the team in driving equity through all that they do. And the silver lining that I have seen is the opportunity to be, ironically, more closely in touch with more people because we're sort of forced to seek out connection rather than assume we're just going to see someone at an event or something like that. Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Sheldon. I lead employee volunteer and giving at Intuit. My silver lining is that I started playing games every night with my daughter, who's 13. And it's been fun because she's a little bit lonely. I mean, it's not fun that she's a little lonely, don't mistake, but it means that she has been very talkative when we sit down and play these games, and it gave me a chance to really hear some things from her that I don't think we would have talked about otherwise. So it's been a really great opportunity in that way. Madison?
Hi, my name is Madison Conrado. I work at San Diego Gas and Electric, also leading our employee giving and volunteerism programs there. And I think this is probably a pretty common COVID silver lining for a lot of people, but for me, there were a few people in my life that I really hadn't gotten to see or connected with in a long time, and I feel like it's given me the opportunity, whether it's been a Zoom call or FaceTime or just taking that extra moment to reconnect with those people, and that's been really nice.
Thank you, Madison, and feel free to tag anyone in the group.
I'm gonna go with Morgan Justice Black because I know she's on the call.
Knew that was coming. Hi there, I'm Morgan Justice Black, Community Relations Manager at SDG&E, and I would say that silver lining has just been like the opportunity and encouragement to get creative. COVID has changed so much of what we do personally and professionally, and so being able to kind of throw the rule book out the window and find new ways to engage and connect and inspire has been really fun. I will go with Angie.
Hello, good morning. I am Angie Lasagna, Community Relations and Media Affairs for Mission Fed. And my silver lining definitely has to be that I have two young kids, same as Christine, 14 and 12. And I have been really lucky to be home to bake and cook with them. So as you know, Lasagna is my last name, so we're Italian. So I've been able to make and teach my daughter how to make homemade pasta and gnocchi. So that's been really fun to be able to spend that time with my kids. So I will pass it on to Melissa.
Hi, sorry about that. I'm Melissa with San Diego Grantmakers. I'm here supporting Carlos on this Zoom call and supporting all the tech on here. My silver lining from this pandemic, I think has been the same as everyone else, is being able to work from home and spending time with family that I normally wouldn't have been able to do. Just reconnecting and spending time with each other, I think, is always a great thing. I will pass it on to Tiana.
Hey everyone, sorry I was running a little bit late. I feel like I've gotten the gist of this. My name is Tiana Ostel. I'm from Illumina. I help manage our employee engagement team. I know many of you on the call. Hello everyone, feels like it's been a long time. And I think my silver lining, I guess, is a little bit work related. Like, I think that the pandemic has been a really interesting opportunity to take a pause in some of our programs and really assess, like, what is the impact. I mean, there's nothing like a pandemic to pause literally every single program that you have. So it's been a good opportunity, I think, to really think deeply about why we're doing the things that we are, as well as I also think it's provided a large opportunity for our team, especially more on the granting side, to get involved, and I think to create deeper partnerships with some of our partners that we know and love. Has anyone not gone yet? Was I last?
No, I can go ahead and pick someone for you. I will pick Jennifer Love Bruce.
Hi there, thank you. So nice to see everyone. Just, I think, reiterating what everyone else has shared, just spending time with family has been really nice. More time really that's devoted together. I mean, when we were really just staying indoors, it was a lot of family time, but it was really great since, you know, we're all so busy with work and just other activities. To really connect with our family has been really great. And I've noticed sort of the saying, like, we're in it together, is, you know, kind of as cliche as it sounds. I think that we really are in it together, that we're all just trying to get through it. And I'm seeing a lot of people working sort of across the way and helping each other, which has been a really nice thing to see. Also, I'm sorry I didn't say, so Jennifer Love Bruce, I am with Sovio, and I am responsible for their CSR efforts. So I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for letting me share. And I will pass it on to Annie Garcia.
Hi everyone, Annie Garcia. I'm with Viasat. I'm the corporate giving manager. And I would say my silver lining would be I was able to adopt a 4-year-old French bulldog from Rescue Love Bulldogs, and just being able to be home with him and get him acclimated to the home has been definitely a silver lining. So really excited about that and excited to be on the call today. I will pass it along to Alyssa.
Thanks, Annie. Hi, guys. I am Alyssa Gaffney. I work with Annie at Viasat. I'd say my silver lining, the first thing that came to mind was a little more like work related, and thinking about how we've had a lot of opportunity, but I think someone else said, to be more creative with some of our stuff, but also like being able to work on a couple projects that we might not have had time for otherwise, that gave us the opportunity really to learn more about the business. With me being only at Viasat for like a year and a half now, it was a great opportunity to learn a lot more about the business and not just CSR and what we do there. So, oh yeah, I have to text someone. I don't know if anyone else hasn't gone yet.
I can pick someone for you. No worries. I will. Jeff, are you on the phone? We have Jeff Dunnigan coming in, or calling in rather. And I will give a second, but Julia, do you mind jumping in with a brief introduction and a silver lining moment that has occurred for you during the COVID-19 transition and pivoting?
This is Jeff Dunnigan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I was about to say the silver lining was that this gave us at UBS, where I work, UBS Financial Services, so many opportunities to explore new ways of doing things and to become so much more efficient with technology and with platforms. We never would have explored all the avenues that we've explored had it not been for this. Then I couldn't unmute myself, so I guess the answer is we've still got a ways to go. And as a grant maker, as a member of the board of the Tippett Foundation, which is a small grant-making foundation, we were wondering before the pandemic hit how to change our ways and what to do different to make ourselves a little bit more efficient with time, with our own time and with our grantees' time. Suddenly the pandemic hit and we realized this is no time to be aggressively chasing data for organizations that we already know, and let's be quick responders and let's make emergency grants right away to organizations that we have experience with and move the money as quickly as we can. And everybody jumped on that idea, and we have the fastest grant making cycle we've ever had in our history, which is a great lesson for going forward.
Thank you, Jeff.
Great, I'll go now. Hi, I'm Julia from Qualcomm. I am manager of community engagement, and I'm the executive director of the Qualcomm Foundation, and also on the board of San Diego Grant Makers. Lots of little silver linings, but one is that, well, the reason I was a few minutes late is because I was doing my daily yoga, which I pretty much wear yoga clothes exclusively so that at any moment I can do my like 30-minute yoga and fit it in anywhere. And so that's something I could have done before, but never decided to commit to it. So that's been a silver lining for me.
Awesome. And I will tag someone who hasn't gone yet. Penny?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good morning. Thanks for tagging me. Well, I am with San Diego Gas and Electric. I am the Senior Community Relations Manager. And I would have to say that there have been several silver linings. Just like a lot of folks mentioned, we looked at lots of things. We democratized our giving. We got our employees engaged. We did so many things virtually. We expedited our application forms and really looked at what our partners really, really need in order to get through some of the challenges that were coming down that were impacting nonprofit organizations via COVID. And last but not least, I have to say that the silver lining for me at home is that I was able to spend a lot of time with my husband who was bi-coastal for 10 years in New York City. So really, this was just really getting acquainted, having our little lunch dates and our little breakfast dates. And it was just super cool that with COVID, it allowed us to do it because, you know, in community relations, you're really on the go 24/7. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Penny. And I believe the last person who hasn't gone, and I could be mistaken, is Rebecca.
Probably, yeah, sorry, I joined a little bit late too. I'm Rebecca Doran-Lippis. Thanks for including me on the call this morning. I am from Sempra Energy, and I am one of the corporate citizenship managers there. I'm assuming we're doing silver linings, I think is what I'm gathering. So for me, on a personal note, this has been actually the best case scenario because I, in the fall of last year, had our second son. And so I never returned to the office. I rolled right out of maternity leave and to our home office. So that's been an absolute wonderful thing because I have not really had to fully leave him. I still get to see him and pop in and out, and got to see him last week. As the nanny's like, I think he's gonna do it. Come downstairs. So all of those little things normally I would have missed. That has been wonderful. From the work perspective, this has been a really, really good opportunity for us. We have been able to really streamline our giving. We finally were able to launch online applications on our website. And so we have been doing a lot of really good, cool work and kind of getting ourselves set up for the next level of giving. So it's been a really exciting time. And we've been able to accomplish a lot in getting all of that going just from home. So it's been great, actually.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. And before I hand it over to Megan, I realized I didn't get a chance to introduce my silver lining moment. So pretty much echoing what everyone else has said, the one thing I think that will stand out for me is in terms of a lot of the conversations that are happening around racial justice, the themes and topics, I would have them, but in a different way because I was at home and I was in quarantine and I was kind of in a place where I had to really reflect on things that weren't very easy, but it was important for me to recognize where my privileges were and where I was implicated and complicit and what changes I needed to make. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had that time and space to have those reflections. So that's what I will share, and I will hand it over to Megan.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you everybody for sharing all these great insights into your life and how it's changing. And speaking of which, a couple of changes at San Diego Grantmakers that having you all here today together offered us an opportunity to share. The first is that you probably got a message on Friday announcing that we are completing a name change and updating our brand. And thank you, Tiana, for participating. You'll see her in bright lights at our conference giving some comments about it. But we're a 40-plus-year-old organization, and as the world has changed, we've adapted along with it and really wanted our name to also reflect the work that we're really doing and the partners that we do it with, like you. And so as of officially December 1st, we will be, let's see if we can see it, Catalyst of San Diego and Imperial Counties. Oh, yeah, awesome, thank you. And thanks to Julia, and I think maybe a couple of other folks up here who were on our brand committee, just talking about funding a thriving region together, moving away from emphasizing only philanthropy and moving into recognizing that funding and resources come from a lot of places and look a lot of different ways, and all of the work gets done because we do it together. So there will be more to come. We'll have a brand spanking new website, of course, on December 1st. And at the conference, which is November 17th, the conference, right, our online virtual summit, we'll have a video that talks a little bit more about that, what that means to us. So very excited about that. The second piece of news is a little bit less of an upper, but just wanted to share with you all that we are having a leadership transition. Debbie McKeon's last day as president and CEO is actually today. And after that date, we'll move forward with a leadership team of myself, our Vice President of Communications and Impact, Katie Janowiak, and Justin Shaberg, our Director of Operations. We're working very closely with the team and with the executive committee of the board. And while we're very sad to lose a member of our team, we're really confident in the folks who are with us now. And the board is doing the things that they do when these sorts of things take place, and we're moving forward. But continue to be excited about all the work that's been developing and is going forward into the future and our partnerships. And, I think 2021 can only look better for us going ahead. But happy to answer any questions or set up time outside. Don't want to take up too much time at your meeting today, but definitely happy to connect on any questions you have. And also want to let Julia, who is a member of San Diego Grantmakers Board, say anything if she wishes.
Megan, the catalyst for it, I will get to say soon. Very excited for. But no, nothing further. I mean, thank you. That's a great overview and update. And I just want to also mention that if anyone has questions or wants to chat about anything going on at Grantmakers, whether it's the leadership transition, membership, or the rebrand or anything else, please feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Julia.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead. Thank you, Megan. We're going to go ahead and kick it off, and Melissa can help us out with that PowerPoint slides. And I'll start with our first speaker for today, Madison from San Diego Gas and Electric.
Awesome. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you for inviting SDG&E to speak to you all today. I'm excited to join you guys to share some of our own insights on employee engagement and navigating it through this new virtual world, and also hear some of the lessons this group has learned through the many changes that we've all had to adapt to this year. So one of the things Carlos, Christine, and I were talking about before everybody jumped on the call was kind of this term virtual volunteering, just because a lot of us are working from home and it is very virtual heavy. But for us at SDG&E, we have had success with virtual, but it's also remote volunteering, so not necessarily on your computer. And then I'll also talk a little bit about some of the smaller group volunteer efforts that we've been able to pivot from some existing programs that we had before into new, creative, safe ways to engage our employees. So these photos on this slide, they're, obviously pre-COVID. We did a lot of large group efforts, large gatherings, and through these past 8 months, we've obviously not been able to do that type of engagement. And thinking about employee engagement, we really focused on 3 main points on the next slide. Continuing authentic engagement to help the people and customers of SDG&E to power their purpose, adjusting existing employee programs and creating new opportunities for engagement, and reorienting programs towards social justice in the pandemic. So kind of the word pivot, but with some more bullets underneath it is what we've been doing. So a lot of these kind of first initial new volunteer opportunities happen pretty organically amongst our employees. You'll see here that we started an SDG&E sewing circle, and I say we, but I actually didn't have anything to do with it. That's what we mean by organic. It was a team of employees that came together, supplied the resources they need, and they've sewed over 3,000 masks. The majority of those were distributed to frontline workers at SDG&E, but once that need was met for our employees, they continued to sew masks, and they selected I worked with them to select a few nonprofit partners to distribute these masks to. So Rady Children's Hospital, Emilio Nara's Foundation, and Ronald McDonald House that are all working with children undergoing critical treatment for the illnesses that they're dealing with, their families. So distributing masks to those groups, knowing, they more so than a lot of other groups are very vulnerable and need to be protected, and we wanted to make sure they were supplied with those things that they needed. And then some of our employees also created some kindness messages to deliver along with those masks that we created. So a new volunteer opportunity that everyone was able to do remotely without coming into contact with other employees. On this next slide, you'll see that we created a similar card making campaign, but this one was particular to support seniors, a group that we know has been extremely isolated throughout the course of the pandemic. We also created an incentive for employees. So every card that was created, we donated $10 to Meals on Wheels of San Diego County, the organization that we partnered with to distribute cards to senior clients across the county. One of the things we've realized with some of this volunteering is we might have smaller groups doing it. So 35 employees that participated in the activity, but the feedback across the board was so positive, most notably for our employees who are parents and could do this activity with kids during the height of the stay-at-home orders, when you're, I'm sure as a parent, just trying to figure out things you can do to occupy your kids. And so some of these activities were really great in giving them good opportunities to give back and have something to do while they were home with their families. On this next slide, I'll talk a little bit about our pivoting some of our existing programs and leveraging the partnerships we already have to volunteer in new ways. So the Environmental All-Stars program is our marquee employee volunteer program that offers typically about 10 volunteer events throughout the year on Saturdays, where our employees and their families can come out, do a large group project. We can have upwards of, you know, over 100 volunteers in one place. Obviously, we couldn't do that anymore. So for a little bit there, we just had to pause the program, right? We couldn't really get folks outside to do activities. Then came this idea of household unit volunteering, in which small teams of employees and their household units could volunteer together. We had to take a different approach again with these smaller group sizes and make sure to coordinate projects and partner with organizations that were doing work in outdoor open spaces. And since we kind of started this reimagined approach back in July, employees and their families have been volunteering with Produce Good to glean citrus from private orchards across, mainly in North County, so areas like Valley Center, Vista, Rancho Santa Fe, where there's a lot of orchards and food being grown. And then once that produce is picked, it's been donated to organizations experiencing food insecurity. So we've been able to have 6 events, and we have 2 more on the calendar for before the end of the year. And again, this is just something that's been a huge success. It's really responding, one, to the need of hunger in our region. So we know that through the pandemic that families experiencing hunger insecurity has really been heightened. And then additionally, you know, our employees, all of us want to continue to give back. And being inside for so long, over a long course of the many months of the pandemic, these new safe opportunities to get outside have really worked well for our employees and their families, as well as our partnering organization, Produce Good, and the great success we've had picking over 7,000 pounds of fresh produce thus far that's been donated to other local organizations. So another great example of some of these new and different volunteer activities is our recent participation in I Love a Clean San Diego's 2 big cleanups, Creek to Bay and Coastal Cleanup Day. Again, typically folks would be gathering in big groups to kick off these different cleanups, but instead of that, volunteers were encouraged to just hit the streets in their own neighborhoods and volunteer to pick up trash, masks, gloves, all the safety precautions taken into consideration, of course. And we actually had over 250 volunteers registered to participate in this. And we had no idea how it was going to go, but just again, a ton of positive feedback from employees about getting outside, having something to do with their families. A lot of the time is this recurring message that we get. And it's just kind of another example of how we've been able to reimagine programs and projects that already have existed within our company before, but we can still volunteer and provide these opportunities to our employees in ways that have the same, if not more, value and impacts for the communities where we're working. And the next slide, please. Thank you. Lastly, I just kind of wanted to briefly talk about some of the fundraising efforts that have occurred at SDG&E and how they fit in that 3rd bullet I discussed at the beginning, reorienting our programs towards social justice and the pandemic. So we, at the beginning of the pandemic, kind of wanted to be very sensitive to our employees and the unique situations everyone is in. So in a normal year where we might do some larger fundraisers, we thought, well, let's pause, let's take a step back, let's kind of wait and see and get a pulse from our employees about what's going on and how they're feeling. And we actually got a lot of outreach from employees saying, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? And so we've had a lot of success just posting articles on our internal news feeds about, you know, some of the bigger issues that we've been dealing with this year, and, you know, providing instructions and resources for employees to donate, get their donations matched. But other than really these articles, not doing a whole lot more, because again, we just don't really want to be too pushy about asking too much of people during this time. And just based off of these articles, we've seen some really amazing results. We've raised over $60,000 for the San Diego COVID-19 Community Response Fund. Our parent company, Sempra Energy, launched a social justice campaign across their family of companies that provided a double match for employee donations. And not just SDG&E, but across the family of companies, we've raised over $400,000. And then lastly, one of my favorite programs at SDG&E that's been reimagined due to COVID is SDG&E's Fantastic People series that welcomes people from all walks of life to meet the employees of SDG&E and share their stories, and moving it to a virtual setting, whereas before when we were doing these events in person, you could only accommodate 200 to 250 people in an auditorium room. Now we've seen, you know, some events where upwards of 1,000 employees are tuning in to these virtual live interviews with folks like LT, Bill Walton. We recently did a panel of local female leaders with our CEO. And one of the really cool parts about it is each event has an associated nonprofit partnership, and we give employees the chance to make a donation at the end to these organizations. And we've also kind of oriented a lot of that giving and the nonprofit partners in this social justice space. And we've raised over $30,000 collectively for a lot of these organizations. So again, it just, I'll end there and open it up for questions, but these are kind of just some of the examples of how we've had success, whether it's been a small group, volunteering from home, you know, moving to this virtual setting. And again, we've really found a lot of value in programs that are somehow linked back to social justice and the pandemic, and a lot of the, you know, issues that we can respond to under those things that are going on and are so relevant in the world today. And then also just reimagining some of those other programs we had before and getting creative and doing them in new and different ways. And with that, I will end it and open it up for questions, or maybe we pass it off to Christine and then questions at the end.
Well, I would definitely like to provide folks an opportunity. If any questions have come up, feel free to voice them out. Actually, I had a question, maybe those are formulating for some folks. For you, Madison, as you mentioned that the racial justice and the COVID was in response to employees' interests, if I understood that correctly. And was there a survey, or how was it that information?
Not survey. I mean, we're between myself and this, I think there's about 8 people in the community relations team at SDG&E. We're pretty connected across the company with different groups. Our associate groups, our lean in group, our green team, all of these different groups. And so between at least one member of the team is engaged with them. And so between those partnerships and interactions, as well as just people knowing to reach out to us, they're typically like, you know, what's a good organization we can give to? Who's doing this? Who's responding? Can we donate? Can we do something? So it was kind of a mix of getting a pulse in some of those different types of meetings, and then also that direct outreach from employees to our group.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Christine, let's go ahead and hand it over to you. And we have a portion at the end where we can go over some questions with the crowd.
Great, thanks. Also, my computer's throwing an error message, so hopefully I don't run into trouble. So forgive my slides. I am not a very good slide creator. So I just wanted to put something up for you all to look at while I'm talking. But basically, at Intuit, our mission is to power prosperity around the world. So like many of your organizations, 2020 really kicked in a flurry of activity and social responsibility efforts, as well as racial equity. And so, I won't go into that, although I'll say we just released our CR report. So if you're interested, you can definitely take a look. But what I wanted to talk about today is our week of service and how we used it to sort of be a catalyst for change and to really engage our employees in this new way of volunteering and getting involved in the community. So just for quick background, traditionally we've had a week of service for 7-8 years, but basically it's been obviously looked very different in the past. So we have 17 sites that participated around the globe, and in the past we've let each site sort of select its own time to do that. So it wasn't one week globally, it was whatever week worked best at each site, because we're all on different cycles, as you can imagine. And so this year, COVID, the work from home, quarantine's not the right word, but you guys know, the work from home hit kind of right as we were in the middle of planning week of service and kicking off all of our sites. So it gave us a really great opportunity to, I think Morgan said, throw the book out and start over. So we did decide to have one global week because we feel like really leveraging virtual, the nature of virtual, of course, is that we can allow people from different sites and different countries even to connect to each other and really take advantage of that. We went 100% global. So Madison talked a little bit about how they were able to incorporate some getting out into the community. We were not there. All of our sites were on complete work from home. And so in order to support the idea that we're not getting together, we didn't do any in-person volunteering. So it was all virtual and remote. And that was really a huge change management effort prior to, really launching Week of Service. Our sites, our employees had kind of gone into wait mode with getting involved in the community. They didn't really feel like there was a way to make this transition. So it was sort of like, well, let's just wait it out. We'll be back in the fall. And then as things started to, it wasn't like we're all going back to the office in July. And so we really had to rethink what we were going to do. And so in the past, we've been really heavily focused on in-person volunteering and getting our employees off campus. So this year we really doubled down or went after sort of a mix of opportunities that could get employees engaged on, in whatever way made the most sense to them. Employee feedback, I'm sure you guys are hearing this from your employees too, right? Is I'm Zoom fatigued. I'm completely overwhelmed trying to meet my business deliverables and homeschool my kids. And so that we wanted to create a really easy way for employees to get involved without any pressure of, that they must, or creating additional stress and commitment. So really a mix of things for everyone. We really tried to double down on our employee volunteer groups, our employee resource groups, because obviously this year there is that side of employees feeling completely overwhelmed. There's also that sense of there's so many things that I care about, and I don't want to drop out of being part of the conversation or being part of my community. So our employee resource groups were a great way for us to find volunteer opportunities that were meaningful to the people who participate in those groups. And we also, I'm just going through some of the things that we were testing when I said throw the book out. We really started to use this as a full test. So some of the things that we were thinking about, including, this sense of creating team opportunities. So in the past, like I said, we try to get employees to go out and get out into the community. And so this time around, we thought it'd be really productive for teams to work together in a new way. So we created guides to help team leaders create volunteer opportunities that could bring their teams together. And then the last thing, as I mentioned, manager support. More than ever, obviously, you know, employees being able to and being inspired to participate in volunteering is augmented by your leadership, right? Or it's fundamental that our leaders not only talk about the importance of these things, but also get involved. And so this year we felt like that was even more important than ever, especially as we go through this change management and help employees balance all those commitments. So we really focused on engaging our leaders in on a new level. So all of that is, you know, the things that we were thinking about as we went into recreating our week of service. And I'm not going to go bullet by bullet on the outcomes, but I will say that our overall participation rate was only 17%, which in a normal year would have been crushing defeat. Like, oh no, that was a complete failure. However, we did find that a couple things, right? One is most of our sites got more into the 20-30% range. Some of our sites got 50 to 80% participation, which we thought was phenomenal. And the feedback from employees who did participate was really positive. So we understand that while participation rates were lower because employees do have all these conflicting priorities right now, we felt like the employees who did participate were really proud that we continued to, you know, to get involved with the community and create ways to make that easy. You know, even to the point where people, you know, were just a sense of pride that we didn't give up over going virtual. And so in NPS, if you guys know what that is, Net Promoter Score was 78, which means the people who participated and took our survey afterwards were really pretty delighted by the experience. And so I talked about a new mix. So basically I was saying that in the past, we really were, the most important thing was to get employees off into the community, get them to make that new connection. And this year we focused more on creating that balanced mix. So we did have some activities that were like, you know, what we called scheduled, show up at Thursday at 4. And those are more of the Zoom session kind of stuff. And our teams got really creative, everything from, you know, they did a lemonade stand for the kids and the proceeds went to a food shelter and, or a food bank. And another team did like a Tetris tournament kind of thing, and they raised all kinds of money for I forget what charity they donated to, but you know, kind of really just engaging our employees to show up at a certain time. We also put a ton of energy into what we call on your own time activities, and this was the stuff that you could do without logging into Zoom. So Madison talked a little bit about, you know, writing letters. We had a bunch of different places that employees could write letters to support seniors, to support the military, even kids in hospital, things like that. Other activities like we created acts of kindness. I know a lot of us have been talking about how do you incorporate some of the activities that employees do in the community, but not necessarily for a nonprofit, which was probably not part of the mix before. So things like going around the neighborhood and picking up litter on your daily walk. In fact, one of the most popular activities, this just blows me away, it kind of cracks me up, was plogging. If you guys haven't heard of plogging, Julia, I bet you've done it. It's picking up litter on your daily jog or walk. Plogging was super popular and people were posting pictures of themselves. In fact, one of our Australia colleagues posted her picture. She put her garbage bag down on the floor and a big spider, you know, they have big bugs in Australia. He crawled into her bag, and so there was a big string of jokes about that. But anyway, so just stuff that people could get out and do on their own. Madison talked about the value of kid-friendly activities. We really highlighted that as well. So people can take time away from work, away from their colleagues, away from their teammates, and be with their kids and still feel like they're participating and doing kind of what they're supposed to be doing for work. And so there's a lot of things in there for our employees with kids as well. So overall, basically we do consider the week a complete success, especially because we went into it with a mentality of this is just a great big test. It's a test of what are our employees interested in? What can we get done? How does virtual work, virtual remote? all those things. And so we really feel like we not only engaged employees at a meaningful level, but we also learned a lot, especially going into the upcoming months, seasons of giving, right? And how do we really help support employees through the holidays? So just really fast, you know, you can read the lessons learned, but really, you know, making things, giving employees a variety of ways to get involved was important. Increasing our leadership support. We definitely see the pockets where leaders were more active and less active, and so we need to get after making sure that it's across the board. Doubling down on this cross-site idea. Our London and France offices, for example, had a challenge, a fitness challenge, and that went really well. It engaged employees. It also helps employees sort of learn from each other. And on the admin side, you know, one person can set up an event that people across the globe can participate in. So it really lightens the load of creating an opportunity like Week of Service. And then communications, just being super clear and getting started early. We were off to a late start because we were halfway down planning a standard Week of Service when COVID hit. And so we had to take our time to shift gears. So that's it. I will open it up for questions or feedback. I'd love to learn from your experiences as well. I won't say we dialed it in exactly, but made very good progress.
Thank you, Christine. And we're going to open it up to Q&A from the group. And I will start with one question that stood out to me, is that you mentioned this was a very big change management process for your team, and that you created guides for the leaders to help them with the change management. And I was curious what other strategies or tools were helpful in that process.
Yeah, the way our program works, and I know others on this call have the same thing, we have ambassadors at each site. So these are the folks who kind of are the feet on the ground, organizing opportunities and the voice at the site, and really first focusing on them, because even they were like, let's just wait, like, you know, our nonprofits are not doing virtual, we can wait. So really helping that first line of employees understand the value and see how it's going to work so that they can communicate more broadly was really important. And then you hit the nail on the head, Carlos, really helping our leaders understand where we're coming from and what the message is behind still having a Week of Service. There was a good bit of doubt as to whether we should even have this. Are employees overwhelmed already? Do we need to be adding more? So really sharing with our leaders, you know, what the value is and why we were moving forward in a non-pressure kind of way was very helpful. And then one thing that we learned and didn't focus as much on, but in addition, next steps kind of thing with our leaders is making the time for employees to participate in these. This is always true, but especially in these times where we're trying, you know, virtual puts that pressure on people, like, I have to answer email right away. I have to look like I'm at my desk. I have to perform. So working with the managers in order to really create the time for employees to get involved is important.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Christine. And one reflection that I'm getting from both your presentation and what Madison shared earlier is it sounds like there was a greater sense of appreciation and joy from team members and employees who were involved in specialized programs that were smaller programs. And I'd be curious to hear, Madison and also Christine, is any plans for the future with what you received in that feedback?
Yeah, I can give a quick thing before I hand it over to Madison. We did the part of the mix that we introduced is more of the team focus. So in the past, we've let teams go off and do their own thing, but we kind of left it to themselves to organize. And by creating this team guide way for managers to create small group, you know, able to create that connection with among the team and on non-work related things. So a time to come and just, you know, participate in things that touch you personally or are meaningful to you, or just open that space for some fun. And, you know, you're volunteering, but you're having fun and connecting with your teammates at the same time was really valuable.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Christine said. We had a very similar situation in our company with these smaller group efforts that have been so meaningful. We'll definitely continue to do them. We we do have other programs that we offer that aren't necessarily volunteering, but kind of like what Christine was talking about with some of these fitness challenges. So those are opportunities for teams to group up and like be connected to one another and kind of have a common goal that they're going towards. And we've seen a lot of success there. So we'll absolutely continue to see these into the future, I'm sure.
Thank you, Madison. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate all of this feedback and perspectives. We have some time. I want to save some time at the end for the poll, but I'd love to hear from folks in the crowd, just some brief updates, reflections, perspectives, and feedback.
I actually had a quick question for Christine. First of all, amazing job. You all did an amazing job. And like, I feel like virtual is like, it's like the same 5 opportunities that I feel like I'm cutting and dicing in different ways. I'm like, have you heard of Career Village? Like, have you heard of all of these things? So it'll be interesting, I think, over the next few months to figure out like how we can create more innovative ways. Like Christine, when I saw over 100 opportunities, I was like, I need that list, because I think I've been seeing the same 20 that I feel like everyone in the US has kind of been seeing. So I would love to connect with you afterwards. But I guess a question that I had for you, Christine, and Madison too, is just thinking about like, I think we're really trying to focus on decreasing the amount of nonprofit partners we have and trying to like increase the impact. And so I guess when you're planning these activities, Christine, like how do you see follow-up with these organizations? Like, how do you see this being more of a comprehensive package rather than like a one-off? Because we've been approached a few times by our leadership to do this type of activity, but we've always said like, hey, like the amount of time that goes into preparing for it sometimes is too much for the amount of work that we put into it. I literally think someone just said in the chat, like, was it just yourself? Was it a team? Like, how did you make this happen on top of COVID and like everything else that's happening in your life?
Yeah, so I'll be candid. One of the bits of feedback we got was this was just too heavy a lift for the outcome. But I also feel like we set a foundation in place that we can start to leverage, and it'll be lighter load in the future. But so 2 things. One, I didn't do it all by myself. I have people at all of I have 40 what we call chairs. So it's 40 people at the 17 sites that are really sort of helping organize, and even they don't necessarily organize it all. We really want employees to step up with the nonprofits that they love and create opportunities themselves, but that's where it all falls apart, right? All the employees are like, forget it, time out. We're gonna just wait till we can go back to doing what we were doing. So a lot of the new stuff that we introduced was just more for fun, the more lightweight, single touch, not really the high impact stuff, Tiana, that you were asking about. There is an opportunity in some of with our more partner nonprofits to find the new way to do virtual. Or one of the big things that really was a hit and very impactful that I'd love to quick say about is we did a helping coach, trial run kind of interviews with an organization that supports people on the autism spectrum. So what was cool about that is, because I love the psychology behind volunteering. And so what we did is invited our hiring managers, our TA folks to come and participate. And so not only did the recipients receive the coaching that they came, but on our side, our hiring managers are like, oh, now they have a new perspective on someone on the autism spectrum and whether they are a good candidate or not, and what are their strengths and how can we leverage that? So anyway, Tiana, to your bottom line question, I think we did create a ton of opportunities and we had to actually curate them a little bit. One of the feedback was it didn't feel quite as impactful as some of our past in-person events. That was, that is kind of the shadow.
Thank you, Christine. And Madison, any closing comments to respond to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like very, very similar to Christine. Like the smaller projects and getting smaller groups together, you're obviously not going to get necessarily the same a larger impact. And we did find that we had to curate some of these opportunities for people as well, just because, again, with so much going on, and I think people just kind of wanted the instructions, like step 1, step 2, step 3, here's how you can do it. And we do offer other programs where we encourage people to group up together and they can pick their own cause. We want to power people to support the causes they care about. So for us, it's really important to have a mix of those different things. But to your point during the question, you said something about, starting to have, less number of partners and do larger impact projects with them. And that's a continued conversation that we're having. So I would also love to hear from the group if there have been any success in that arena for folks.
Yeah, we have time for anyone. Folks want to chime in really quick, and then we will close out with a few comments. But does anyone have any perspectives they'd like to share in response to Madison's question? I also like to consider this group as a forum. So we have a listserv. If folks want to follow up via email, that's an opportunity to connect. And I just want to echo, I can't thank you enough, Christine and Madison, for sharing your perspectives and what your team members are doing. It's been successful. I mean, hearing from the folks in the group has been really, I can tell it's been well received and appreciated. So thank you. My colleague, Melissa, if you'd be so kind as to put up for us a evaluation poll, as I mentioned before. And as well, Megan mentioned our November 17th summit. I went ahead and put in the link in the chat box. It's feel free to check it out. We're looking forward to the speakers we have secured and some new surprises to reveal along the way as November 17th approaches. So any questions, you have my email, feel free to reach out to me. But once again, thank you to our speakers and thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks.
Great to see everybody.